Star Trek Voyager, Starfleet Academy, Lifeline. Chapter 5. That evening, Catherine walked briskly across campus, a small program chip clutched in her hand and a mental argument going full blast in her head.
"You should be able to handle this on your own," the rational part of her kept saying. "You don't need to do this."
The emotional part of her disagreed.
"You just want to visit her, that's all," it argued. "If you hadn't planned on ever visiting her, you wouldn't have brought her along in the first place, right?"
That seemed to settle the argument, at least for now. Catherine hurried down the path, past the admin building, past the fountain, and onto the campus holo-center. There, cadets could use holosuite facilities on their personal time for personal matters. The center offered a variety of simulations for academic extra credit, relaxation, sports activities requiring non-Earth environments, plus thousands more programs, some educational, some strictly for entertainment. Catherine had booked a holosuite for 1 hour, but she didn't need to rent a program. Upon entering the small empty room, she inserted the program chip she'd been carrying into the control panel. She didn't notice that her hands were shaking and her heart was beating just a little too fast. She merely told the computer, "Run program." Instantly, the room changed. Its black and yellow gridded walls shimmered, disappeared, and Catherine suddenly found herself standing in a huge open field with a blue sky overhead and firm earth under her feet. In fact, the earth under her feet was more than firm. It was oiled and pressed dirt. Catherine breathed in deeply, savoring the clean country air. A low buzzing noise started up behind her, and she smiled, looking over her shoulder to see a small black dot in the sky. As it approached, the buzzing turned into the rumble of a primitive combustion engine. The dot became an old biplane flying straight at her. Catherine ducked, and the biplane flew past barely 15 feet over her head. Its wheels touched down on the dirt-packed runway, and it rolled to a stop next to several other planes parked outside an enormous hangar. Catherine straightened back up, grinning harder than ever. She loved this holo simulation. It had taken her weeks to research and program this 1930s rural airstrip, the kind that had dotted the open fields of Middle America back when mankind had first taken to the skies. This was the kind of airfield that had been used by one of Earth's first female pilots, Amelia Earhart.
"Well, look who the cat dragged in. It's Katie Janeway."
Amelia herself leaped out of the biplane and waved. She was a petite woman, dressed in baggy, grease-smeared coveralls. Pulling off her tight leather aviator's cap, she ruffled her fingers through her brown hair until it fluffed back out into a practical cropped cut. Not very stylish, but Amelia wasn't one to worry about fashion. She was an aviator, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She was Catherine Janeway's hero. Catherine jogged up to greet her holo friend, putting out a hand for a cordial handshake. Amelia frowned. "What's the matter? You already been at the academy so long you forgot how to greet an old friend?" With that, she pulled Catherine into a tight bear hug.
"I forgot how strong you are,"
Catherine grunted. "I'm only as strong as you programmed me to be," Amelia replied, and she maneuvered Catherine back an arm's length so she could take a good look at her. "Nice uniform, kid. Except for the grease, maybe." Catherine looked down at herself.
"You got it all over me."
It'll come out," Amelia chuckled. "Besides, now you'll fit in around here. Come on, I'll get you a soda pop and we can talk. I take it you didn't come here for flying lessons." Catherine followed Amelia into the hangar, a big domed structure that could house as many as 6 two-seater planes at once. 4 were there now, in various states of disassembly as mechanics poked and prodded with archaic tools that Catherine usually saw only in history texts. Engine parts, more tools, and piles of filthy rags littered the floor. The place smelled of machine oil. "Hope you don't mind talking while I work on the dust devil over there," Amelia said, Engine needs a tune-up. Here. She grabbed up a bottle of soda from a box in the corner and handed it to Catherine. True to the holoprogram's 1930s parameters, the soda was room temperature. Sorry, kid, no ice. Refrigerators won't be common appliances for another 20 years after all. Catherine laughed. She was used to Amelia's wry observations of the differences between her 1930s holo world and Catherine's 24th century reality. Unlike most holosuite characters, Amelia was self-aware. Years ago, Catherine's teachers at the Meadows Elementary School back in Indiana had worried that she was too competitive for her age. When Catherine refused to discuss the idea, dismissing it as ridiculous, the school counselor assigned her a holo counselor with the hope that she might open up to an imaginary person, if not a real one. What he didn't expect was that Catherine would modify the program to suit her imagination. After much research, Catherine reprogrammed the original office environment into a 1930s airstrip and reprogrammed the counselor to look and sound like her hero, Amelia Earhart. Catherine had based Amelia's looks and voice on historical fact, but Amelia's personality was Catherine's creation. Despite her new personality, Amelia still functioned as a counselor. She could access informational databases to support her advice, but she never judged or reprimanded Catherine. She just listened. Over the years, Amelia became Catherine's best friend, her lifeline throughout childhood, and the one person Catherine could always rely on after her father's work took him away. For all those years, no one knew of Amelia's existence. Catherine kept it a secret. It was a secret still. So, Amelia said, examining the Dust Devil's engine, "What's on your mind, kid?" Catherine shrugged. "I just wanted to visit. I haven't seen you for a while." Amelia laughed. "It's not like I'm hard to find." Using a pair of pliers, she gripped something deep in the engine and tugged. "So let's see. You've been at Starfleet Academy for, 2 weeks now?" Amelia was accessing Catherine's public computer files for pertinent data even as she spoke. "You're doing swell in academics, surprise, surprise. You're smarter than I ever was, that's for sure. Making friends?" Catherine watched Amelia work, fascinated by the antique engine. "I guess." "Is that a yes or a no?" Catherine laughed. "A yes, I guess." Her laugh faded. All humor seemed to drain from her, leaving an emptiness that was almost physically painful. "I don't know. I feel—" Catherine tried to continue, but her voice failed. She always had trouble talking about her feelings, even to Amelia. Now she couldn't even make a sound. Words simply refused to leave her mouth. She blinked rapidly, surprised at the tears forming behind her eyes. Amelia pretended not to notice and continued to tinker with the Dust Devil's engine. "Look, Katie, you've always had trouble fitting in. Comes from being a perfectionist. Now it's even harder because you're in a place where you can't make the rules." She glanced at Catherine. "And boy, do I know how you like to run the show." "That's not true," said Catherine. "I don't want to run anything. I just want to— I don't know." She sighed with frustration. "There's nobody I can talk to, that's all." "What, your universal translator ain't working?" "Oh, very funny." "You're getting mad. We must be touching on something important." Amelia stopped working and leaned close. "Who are you mad at, kid?" Catherine opened her mouth, but like an elusive butterfly, her voice escaped her again. "Me?" Catherine shook her head. "A teacher?" Another shake. "Your roommates?" Catherine thought of Thrumpole. They weren't always easy to deal with, but they weren't the problem. Not all of it, anyway. "So much is going on, Amelia. I feel like I'm running all the time, but I don't know where I'm going anymore. I should be able to handle this, but I just—" She bit her lip, unable to say the last word. "Can't?" Amelia suggested bluntly. "I can!" Catherine cried out. "I have to." "Kid, why don't you talk to a counselor?" "I can't talk to an academy counselor," Catherine said angrily.
Anything I say will go on my permanent record. You know that. I don't want to worry Mom, and I certainly can't talk to Phoebe."
Catherine shook her head, wondering about her younger sister.
"She doesn't understand anything."
"What about your father?" Amelia asked softly. Catherine snorted.
"What about him?"
"I asked you first." Catherine scowled. Edward Janeway understood his little golden bird better than anyone. I would never call my daughter Golden Bird. What a weirdo. Anyway, he always knew how to help Catherine put her problems into perspective, but when she'd called home yesterday, her father wasn't home. He had returned from the conference on Vulcan only to be whisked away again, this time to a meeting on some starbase or another.
"He doesn't have the time," she said flatly.
Amelia set her pair of pliers on the edge of the engine case and stared Catherine right in the eye. "You're very close to your father, Katie. I know how you drive yourself to perfection just to please him. But the fact is, life isn't you and Dad against the world anymore. You're grown up now, and you've got duties here, just as he's got duties out there. His work on the Cardassian problem will have an impact on the future politics of the whole galaxy. Kid, instead of being mad at him, why don't you try to be proud of him?" Catherine's jaws clenched. Before she could stop herself, she threw her bottle of soda pop against the wall where it smashed, splattering warm fizz everywhere.
"I'll be proud of him when he's proud of me," she yelled. "And I'll never know whether he's proud of me or not if he never talks to me anymore."
With that, Catherine ran out of the hangar. The bright sunshine blinded her for a moment, but she kept on running, following the runway across the open field. Deep inside, she wanted to hear Amelia call her back, but she knew Amelia's programming was too smart for that. If Catherine wanted to leave, Amelia would let her leave, knowing that Catherine would come back when she was ready. When she'd finally run far enough that her exhaustion outweighed her anger, Catherine stopped, panting.
"Computer, end program."
Instantly, the open field, the sunshine, and the distant hangar disappeared and was replaced by the holosuite's black and yellow gridded walls. Like the hollow grease stain on Catherine's uniform, Amelia Earhart and her world were gone. Taking her program chip from the computer control panel, Catherine left the holosuite, growling in sheer frustration, almost as well as Thrumple. Chapter 6.
Red alert. Red alert. Port sections to battle stations. Repeat, port sections to battle stations.
Catherine was up and out of bed before she was even awake. She and Thrumple stood in the middle of their dark dorm room in their pajamas trying to figure out what was happening. "It's a drill," Thrum suddenly cried.
"No kidding," said Catherine, awake now. "Port stations only. Paul, that's you and me. Let's go."
Catherine and Paul hurried into their uniforms as Thrum scrambled back to her bed to give them maneuvering room. She had been assigned a station on the starboard side of the dorm ship, so she knew to stay out of the way and await further instructions.
"I was wondering when Mallet would schedule our next drill," Catherine remarked, remembering to clip her unruly hair back this time. "Figures he'd wake us up in the middle of the night."
"It's 1 o'clock, Thrum reported helpfully. That meant that Catherine had finished talking to Amelia only 5 hours ago. Deeply troubled by the experience, she hadn't gone to bed till midnight. She'd had less than an hour's sleep. But she was brimming with energy now as the loudspeaker repeated,
Red alert. Port sections to battle stations."
Ready in record time, Paul ran for the door. "Wish me luck! Squawk!" she called back to her twin as she disappeared. Catherine hastened after Paul, telling Thrum,
"Looks like you've got it easy this time."
"We'll see," Thrum responded, staring after her vanished twin. The hallway echoed with the wail of the klaxon and the pounding of feet as cadets ran to their posts. Catherine hurried to the nearest lift to find Dunkirk and several other cadets waiting for the lift doors to open. Catherine wondered if Dunkirk was angry with her for how she'd treated him that afternoon, but he didn't act put out. He said hello to her, running a hand through his bed-headed hair a little self-consciously. Then the lift doors opened and everyone piled inside. Dunkirk gave a loud snort when Hallie Coogan dashed into the lift just before the doors shut. Just like the first drill, Coogan's uniform was perfect. His boots polished, his hair neatly combed. "You've done it again, Coog," Dunkirk marveled. "What's your secret? Don't you ever sleep?" "Yeah," said Thedamar, "during class." "Ha ha," Coogan said, smug as ever. "You guys just don't know the secrets of perfection, that's all." Catherine itched to ask Coogan what he meant by that, but there was no time. The lift doors opened on the second floor, and she and Dunkirk leaped out and ran for Station 13. Their station monitor informed them that their ship was under Romulan attack. They took several bad phaser hits, during which Catherine and Dunkirk had to be sure to keep the bridge supplied with full readouts from the sensor arrays. At one point, their console overloaded from an energy surge caused by a hit, and they had to perform complicated repairs at top speed. Catherine was pleased by Dunkirk's efficiency this time. Not only was he cool under pressure, but he was fast. Together, they got the repairs completed in mere minutes and sent the delayed sensor data flashing up to the bridge. Despite his efficiency, however, Dunkirk barely spoke during their work. Catherine realized she must have hurt his feelings after all. "Good job, Frost," she said afterward, and meant it. He nodded. "Thanks." That was it. Nothing more. "He's mad at me, all right," Catherine thought. "Come on, Janeway, you owe him." Catherine risked pulling her eyes away from her readout panel so that she could give Dunkirk a smile, but as she did, she noticed Paul run right past Station 13 at full speed. "Paul?" Catherine called out in surprise, but the diasaman didn't answer and didn't stop. She disappeared down the hallway. "What's with her?" Dunkirk asked, watching Paul's retreating figure. "I don't know," Catherine said, "but the drill's not over. She should still be at her post." "Maybe she got special orders." "Yeah, maybe." But Catherine doubted it. Although she'd gotten only a quick look at Paul's face, she'd seen an expression of panic on it. Not the kind of panic that one could associate with a drill scenario, but genuine, full-throttle panic. "I'm worried, Frost." "You're not thinking of following her, are you?" asked Dunkirk in disbelief. "Something's wrong, I can feel it." "But the drill's not over." "Maybe, but whatever was making Paul run didn't have anything to do with the drill." For an agonized moment, Catherine struggled between concern for her performance grade and concern for Paul. To her surprise, she found herself running down the hallway. "I've got to see if she's all right," she called back to Dunkirk. By the time Catherine found her roommate, the red alert lights had stopped flashing. The drill was over. Paul was standing with her sister outside their dorm room, and they were arguing. "You stupid Grizz bucket! I'm all right," Thrum was saying. "It was part of the drill." "How was I supposed to know that?" "Squawk!" Paul growled defensively. "Next time, don't panic so loud." "I didn't panic." "Ah!" "Yes, you did. I felt it." "Ah!" Catherine hated to interfere with the twins when they were arguing, but she was in no mood for childish behavior. She physically stepped between them and ordered, "Calm down, both of you." For an instant, they stopped, glaring angrily at her. Then each of them took a deep breath, ready to continue their argument as if Catherine weren't there. Catherine would have none of it. "Don't say another word." She turned to Paul. "Now what happened? You ran past my station like a cat on fire." Paul pointed an accusing finger at her twin. "Thrum sent panic at me. I couldn't help it. I thought she was dying." "Squawk!" Sent panic?" Catherine repeated, looking to Thrum for an explanation. "You know that Paul and I are linked," Thrum said, and when she tapped her skull to indicate their psychic connection, Paul tapped hers as well, in perfect sync with her twin. "While you two were at your stations," Thrum continued, "our dorm room experienced an atmospheric reduction. I know now that it was part of the drill, simulated damage from the Romulan attack, but for a brief moment I panicked when I couldn't breathe. Then I came to my senses. Found my rebreather in our room emergency kit and put it on, just as I would be required to do on a real starship under such circumstances." Her big eyes stared down at the floor, betraying guilt. "I suppose I transmitted my
initial panic to Paul without meaning to. That's exactly what you did, Paul accused. It was so strong that I panicked as well. Thanks to you, I left my post. I've surely failed the drill. Catherine said quietly. Well, I've failed it too, thanks to both of you. The diaceman's mouths dropped open. Oh dear, Paul said in shock. We're so very sorry, added Thrum earnestly. Catherine said nothing, wondering why she wasn't angry with them. The only anger she felt was aimed at herself, and it grew at the sight of CGC Mallet and Ensign Hott coming down the hallway. I'm sorry, Daddy, she thought, realizing that the first ugly blot on her perfect academy record was on its way. Cadets Paul, Janeway, said Mallet, stopping before them. Why did you leave your posts? The girls explained what happened, and Mallet listened without showing any reaction. When the story was finished, he merely said, Cadet Thrum, you performed as required. You may return to bed. Thrum looked at her roommates with concern. Sir? You have your orders, Cadet, Mallet said firmly. Oh, yes, sir. Thrum unhappily went into the dorm room and closed the door. You two, Mallet said to Catherine and Paul, come with me to my office. He led them down to the dorm's first floor and onto a small room set off from the main lounge. Catherine couldn't help but notice Mallet's infamous countdown clock outside his door. It was nothing but a digital display with a number on it, presently 5. Mallet claimed it represented the number of cadets who had washed out of the academy so far that semester. Catherine had been in Mallet's office before for a general interview during her first week. She knew to sit in one of the contoured chairs, not on the plush couch in the corner. Mallet crossed to his big oak desk. Hott waited for Mallet's nod, then left the office, closing the door behind him. Mallet turned to Paul. Cadet Paul, I don't need to lecture you, do I? You know what you did was wrong and why? Paul swallowed. Yes, sir, I do. As she spoke, her left arm twitched, as if she were having some kind of seizure. Catherine noticed it, and so did Mallet. They'd both seen it before. Each time the diacemans were physically separated, such twitches were common during the separation process. It was merely a sign of nervousness and would diminish as the twins grew apart, but for now it was painful to watch, especially since Paul looked so miserable already. Not that Catherine didn't have her own pain to bear. She was so angry with herself that she was clenching her jaws. The muscles of her neck were beginning to cramp, but she just couldn't relax them. Good, she thought. You deserve to feel bad, Catherine. You made a stupid mistake, and there's no excuse for it. As for Mallet, he showed no emotion whatsoever, neither toward Paul nor toward Catherine. He simply turned to Catherine. Cadet Janeway? Catherine tried to look stern and unflappable, the exact opposite of how she felt. Yes, sir, she managed through gritted teeth. As much as I command your concern for a fellow crew member, you know that I can't commend your performance. As much as our human compassion compels us to act selflessly, such behavior can be disastrous aboard a starship. These dorm drills and the holosuite tests you'll take throughout your academy training are designed to show you when to follow compassion and when to follow logic. Space is not compassionate. Sometimes lives are lost. In this case, had tonight's simulation been a real Starfleet situation, you would have endangered yourself and your entire ship by leaving your post to pursue one crew member, and he indicated Paul, who would have been running into a disaster area. Panicked as she was, Paul may have gotten herself hurt, and perhaps you along with her. Catherine said nothing. Mallet moved to his chair, picked up a data pad, and punched several keys. The little instrument beeped and booped merrily in contrast to Mallet's next words. I'm assigning you both to a holosuite test. This test will not make up for tonight's mistakes, nor will a perfect score erase those mistakes from your records, but it will serve, I trust, as a valuable lesson. Report to training holosuite 4 tomorrow evening after classes. I'll expect you both to return each evening thereafter until you have solved the puzzle to my satisfaction. Puzzle, sir? Catherine ventured. Yes, puzzle. Mallet gestured at the door. That will be all, cadets. Dismissed.
During the walk back to their room, Catherine could feel Paul staring at her, as if the diasaman were hoping she'd say something. But Catherine had nothing to say and kept her eyes straight ahead. "It was all my fault," Paul finally blurted. "I'm sorry you got involved, Catherine."
"Paul, you did what you had to do," Catherine replied. "It had nothing to do with me. I left my post during a red alert. If the drill scenario had been real and anything had happened to Dunkirk, our whole ship could have been endangered. I let my emotions run away with me. Literally," she finished bitterly.
When they reached their room, they found Dunkirk Frost waiting in the hallway. Everyone else had gone back to bed. Dunkirk looked at Catherine with concern. "So what happened?" he whispered.
"We got chewed out," Catherine bluntly whispered back. "Excuse me, I have to get some sleep."
She tried to push past him, but Dunkirk didn't budge. "Catherine, are you okay?" She glared at him.
"What does it matter to you, Frost? My mistake won't reflect on your performance."
With a deliberate shove, she got past him and entered her room. Catherine quietly put her pajamas back on, careful not to awaken Thrum. As she crawled back into bed, she could hear Paul and Dunkirk still talking quietly outside. Part of her wanted to find out what they were talking about, but the angry part of her swallowed up all curiosity and replaced it with cold determination.
"If Mallet's holosuite puzzle is a punishment, then he'll see it solved so fast it'll look like a vacation,"
she vowed to herself. But even her determination couldn't compensate for the terrible disappointment she felt in herself. Replaying her mistake over and over in her mind, Catherine didn't fall asleep till nearly dawn.